Hey friends, welcome to episode 0 of the Modern Golden Age podcast. I'm recording this podcast because previously I had another podcast called What Drives You, and I hope that this episode will explain why I'm letting go of that podcast, why am I embracing the Modern Golden Age podcast, and what are my plans with it. So I started What Drives You in 2019. Back then, my goal was to inspire high schoolers to pursue different career paths and broaden their own views on topics such as work, entrepreneurship, and skills. Back then, I was talking with a lot of different students and hearing things like I can either be a lawyer, a doctor, or a failure. Society was hammering these students with outdated ideas, making them abandon possible dreams just because. And I wasn't okay with that. Being an entrepreneur and knowing a bunch of different people with projects that defy the notion of, quote, normal jobs, end quote, I decided to showcase my friends to these students. What started out with me talking with friends transformed into something bigger. I interviewed international guests and had a really awesome and impactful time and people on the show. Like I talked with Ricardo Marvão, a Portuguese investor, Ryan Ramsey, the founder and CEO of Second Wave Dive, or even Serge Hunt, the creator of one of the best education products I've ever laid my hands on, the EduCreator OS. And this is just me naming a few guests. However, a couple of months ago, I decided to make a small break and ended up not recording any more shows. Why? Well, back then I told myself that I didn't have the time. There were a lot of personal and professional changes happening, and I had to get clear with my priorities. I had left my company to create a nonprofit that had failed, and since I didn't want to go back to corporate training, I was trying to understand what were the next steps in my career. Now, don't get me wrong, I still found the time to do plenty other things. And a lot of them had less impact than podcasting. What I now realize is that I had started to see it as a burden. I'm still a very curious person, a furious fan of conversations, and every single episode of the podcast was a blast to record. But somehow, things weren't clicking anymore. And after some deep inquiry, I realized why. The conversations that I want to have are not the same. After more than 50 episodes of the What Drives You podcast, if a student wants to explore what's possible in their own careers, they'll find content that will help them start that journey. But right now, my focus is not on that specific problem anymore. In fact, I want to have freer conversations without being bounded by the previous framework of what will help a student, what kind of question do I need to make to this guest so that a high schooler can improve their lives. The idea of having more freedom in conversations ignited a fire in my heart, and once again, podcasting became something that made me seriously excited. So much so that I was willing to do it from the extremely uncomfortable position that comes from having these conversations in English. Of course, I didn't act on this right away. In fact, since the beginning of the year, I've been dealing with my own inner critic, postponing starting this podcast because of my difficulty to articulate thoughts in real time in a foreign language. But it came to a point where I knew I had to start, and so here we are. I decided to finish what was once called the What Drives You podcast and start a new challenge, to have new conversations. The podcast page on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other podcast platform will remain the same, and if you're already a subscriber and want to remain one, you don't need to worry about anything. And the older episodes of the podcast will be available but have the whole logo and name, so I can distinguish them from the new ones, from this new project. So I'm letting go of What Drives You so I can welcome the Modern Golden Age podcast. And this is the episode 0 where I will share with you what I want to do and what can you expect from these episodes. You see, I started to wonder, who do I want to talk with? And about what? And things started to take shape last year when Visa, an awesome dude on Twitter, shared a meme. It's just a bunch of bricks positioned as dominoes from smaller to bigger ones, and it implies that if we tackle them all, we get to a golden age of humanity. Looking at the current political and sociological landscape, one may think that the world is far from a golden age. But here's the thing. I believe that if we let go of our own doom scrolling and look at the world without the media's influence and bullshit narratives, we'll see that we have everything we need to make it happen. The technology, the means, the will, and of course the people. However, there are some things missing. And to be honest with you, I don't think I have the brains to figure it out all by myself. But luckily, I know a bunch of people that may help me do it. A lot of folks ask me why I spend so much time on Twitter. Well, it gives me hope. There are people building great communities, trying to bring social change, improving their meaning-making frames, exploring the meta-narratives, understanding how to save the planet by a change of values and behaviors in small communities that, once grown, can transform the world. Crypto, tools for thought, communities of practice, all these are represented on Twitter. And these are the people that I want to talk with. I believe that if we want society and culture to evolve into a new kind of civilization, one that lives in harmony with the planet, we need to question the values, beliefs, goals, and behaviors from our current collective cultural code. We can only do that by understanding that in our own small groups, we also have a cultural code that needs to be constantly questioned in order to give birth to new and brighter narratives. These narratives can then be adopted by more people, creating a unifying narrative shared by people that want this modern golden age to happen. That's my goal. You see, a new society needs to emerge from a new set of values. So far, we've built a civilization and then realized what values made sense and actually represented it. But this time, we need to do the opposite. First, we set the values and then we build a society. A societal model. Something different. Because there are different philosophies around this, but all that matters are the people beyond the ideas. That's the true power of community. Rebuilding society with new values, beliefs, goals, and behaviors. And that's what I want to do with this podcast. Recently, I was talking with a great friend about a vision for the future. He made me realize that this podcast is part of something bigger, something I want to manifest into the world. And the first step is to create these new narratives and talk with people about the themes and topics that may allow for an improvement on the holistic performance of whoever listens to this. Because once we do that, we'll have more people excited and willing to create this modern golden age. This means bringing guests that are scattered across a multitude of areas but are working towards this new reality, one way or another. In this first season, I'll have 10 episodes. If you want to see these episodes on YouTube, you can search for Modern Golden Age Podcast and subscribe there. I'll also publish some personal videos on that channel. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Doing this, there's a part of me that's really scared about it. But change sometimes is scary. And if we want to get to a different global golden age, we must embrace that act and actually act upon fear. And that's what I've realized. And that's why I'm now acting. In the next weeks, I hope to see you around to witness conversations that I'll have with brighter people that are all connected by this idea of bringing a modern golden age. I'll see you all next week on episode 1 with Norman Chila. Have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you.